Hello everyone, this is Tim Rice, author of the book The Missing Link, and I'm here to talk about our challenges with government and give you a little intake on my insight and what caused me to move to my paradise and create my paradise. Many people think that the government is in control of their lives and that the government tells them what to do and that they've taken over their lives. But you have to understand the government is being manipulated by the world elite. And these world elite, they own the banks and the corporations. And through politics, they incorporate their influence upon the masses of people. And these people make the choices and the decisions in life and tell us what we should and what we shouldn't do in reality. And the reason why I know this is because I've spent the last 6 years trying to find out what happened to me in what I call the matrix back at home in the Western culture, United States. And over the last 6 years, I've written a few books, and what I've learned through my investigation is that the world has this powerful influence and they take over our lives. And what we have to do as a result is learn to take back our lives and stop being so dependent on government and what government gives us, because it's never enough. And we actually live in lives insufficiently. People think that jobs and careers are going to yield them a life of happiness and joy. In reality, only 5% of the world population, only 5% of the American population can live abundantly and make $150,000 or more, which means 95% of the American population are living insufficiently. And what that means is that we're human and people don't want to live insufficiently. What they want to do is they want to live abundantly and they want to thrive and be prosperous. But under the current pyramid system, it's impossible. If you do your own research and really look deep into what society is teaching us, you'll see that my words are true. I can be reached at www.gpeliving.com. And once again, my name is Tim Rice. I hope this video was useful and you have a great day.
We were just discussing racism and dividing people and the things that divide us. There's so many things. In families, there's religion, there's politics, there's inheritances and wealth divide families up, and children and divorce. And then in our country we have a lot of things that I think are not as real as what people want to make it out to be, such as racism in America. So many people want to divide our country and divide people over racism. And if you show me one law in America that's racist in intent, I know that America will change that law. And it's just a way of dividing us, because it's not about race, it's not about our family, it's not about inheritances, it's about dividing people up in our countries. And if you divide people, you can conquer them and you can control them. So I don't think there's as many issues out there as what people are trying to make them out to be. Our media and our government wants us divided because they want to control us. Just as simple as that.
Hello, my name is Sherrod Foster. Do we really need government? Government and family don't mix. Through society, history tell us that we can take care of our own selves. Government come in and say, okay, we have services for you, and it's no good for us. Do we really need government? That is the question.
As it relates to the government and the government controlling people, I have maybe what could be considered a different opinion on that. I don't actually believe that it's the actual government. I kind of believe it's the government acting as a pawn for, it could be big businesses or it could be special interests, and those are usually things that form the opinion of the government. For instance, in the government you can have lobbyists, and if these lobbyists have a particular agenda that they're looking for, they'll be at the government and they'll do what they can to persuade government officials to vote in a particular way, and thus these things become signed into law, and thus we as the normal citizen are the victim of these laws. And so many of these laws people have found in later years to be very unjust because they serve the interest of a particular group of people and not the interest of the masses. And so as it relates to that, I always felt like the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. But if you do look at the laws, you'll find that many laws enacted are enacted so that they protect the interests or they protect the ideas of those who pressured the government into enforcing those laws or putting those laws into place. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but in the United States, they had a law. They have a law which is still on the books as it relates to pregnancy, and the law states that if you're identified as being an imbecile, which is a harsh word, you are not allowed to have children. And it was funny, but one judge made the ruling on it. A Supreme Court judge ruled on a woman who was identified as being an imbecile, and she was going to have more children. The judge said that one imbecile is enough. So it's things like this that we wouldn't imagine happen. But when it comes to the government enacting laws, many things come forward as the ideas and opinions of people. Government officials at the time accept them and put them into practice. These things are enforced as laws, and we become the victims of these laws. As time progresses, people are educated, and they see the arrogance and the ignorance of these particular laws, and these laws are repealed, and other laws are enacted. So it's kind of like a two-edged sword when we say the government is doing it, because the government solely is acting as a pawn when it comes to enforcing the ideas of those who want those ideas enforced, and many times those ideas aren't necessarily correct.
My name is Pablo, and I'm originally from the USA. I enjoy, living part-time abroad, and one of the great things about it is it provides me with an opportunity to be around folks who speak different, folks who've grown up or who come from a different culture, and so it gives me an opportunity. Even though I'm of age, I'm still practically kind of like a kid in that I'm learning new things. One of the stories that I can share is that when I was working in the government, I would always, tell folks that, we're just living in one little minuscule of the world. But if we step out of our little comfort zone and travel, it will make us ultimately even a better person. And one of the things is that when I was ready to retire, the guys or the people in the office, they had a bet on me. And in fact, the bet was that, number one, I wouldn't retire because I was comfortable making a government living with a salary that they said was that was acceptable. And for me, it really wasn't about the money. It was about living the life that I chose to live. And so I retired, and the bet was that after I retired is that I would come back. And as here it is 4 years later, and I'm still living abroad, still extremely happy. And I've left the whole government crap. I don't even really pay attention to it as much. I'm living the life I want to be by being around good, humble people, people who to some degree don't have much, but they have a lot just in terms of value, and so my quality of life is a lot better. And when I was there working, I wasn't happy, and now I'm extremely happy. And so that's one of the advantages, I would say, of traveling. That's one of the advantages of living abroad, and that's one advantage of stepping out of the box, as they say, the box that society has made for us. It says this is how we're supposed to live, this is how much we're supposed to earn, when there is no box or there is no category that one should live in. And that's my story.
I'm here more or less out of necessity because my life was taken away from me. My income was taken away from me, from the country, from the government that I used to work for, that I worked with and supported absolutely everybody in the way of families, in the way of business, bringing people around, paying taxes just like everybody else. And over time, as my health deteriorated, I became disabled and relied on what I had paid into my government, that would then be brought back to me. And at first, yes, I was living the dream. But over time, as my government stepped in and started taking monies away, more or less isolating me and not giving me as an individual the freedom to travel where I want. And long story short, they take away a little bit at a time. Over a period of 6 years, that little bit became my lifeline. And when a government has the authority and the power to remove a lifeline, to remove something, a benefit that we paid our entire lives, we've worked hard our entire lives to build our country that we're so proud of, and they take away simply because of where I have chosen to spend my later years in life. Okay? That's wrong, because I paid. I have paid as everybody else pays. I've worked from a young man, 17 years old. 18, I was in the military. After that, I had a business for myself. I employed people. I employed families. And those people relied on me and our government, the faith that we have in our government, to carry us forward into our later years in life. And only now do I realize that I'm not the only one in this position. I talk to people every day here, and so many of us say the same thing.
So when it comes to what divides people, people are divided on many different issues. It could be race, it could be religion, anything that is different about one person and another, people can find it as a point of contention. But when it comes to what really divides people, I think it's economics. And oftentimes it has to do with money and the control of money. And at many times the money is the driving force of division. For example, the average person makes a certain amount of money. They could be black, white, Spanish, Puerto Rican, and they're making the money that they make. But being that they're so busy in what we call the rat race, they don't understand that someone is watching the race. And the people who are watching the race are actually the people who have the big money, or the people who have the control. And so one person said it really well. He said, while we're down here fighting with each other, they have people on the top who are comfortable with the positions and the power and the money that they're making. And so their preference is to have people fighting against each other on these different grounds, race, religion, whereas everyone wants the same thing in life, to take care of their family, to provide their children with a good education, to basically have a decent life. I remember in the United States we had a big thing with immigrants. Many people felt that Mexicans were coming over and they were taking jobs away from white people and black people, and these Mexicans were just taking all of our jobs, And so one comedian put it very nicely. He actually had a picture of a Mexican immigrant. The guy had just came off the boat or crawled under the wire, whatever he had did, and the guy was just beat up and uneducated, and the guy just looked a mess. And he pointed to the guy and he says, "If this is the guy who's taking your job, you should be ashamed." So the point was, it wasn't so much that the guy was taking the jobs away, it was just an idea that was promoted to keep people divided. At the end of the day, all people are the same, and if people don't come together to realize that there's a stronger force driving the division, then we'll always be in the same boat, as opposed to just understanding that we're all human and that we're all equal and that we all have a right to the basic necessities of life.